This is a video about repayments using an annuity. And you might think, oh, this is nothing. What's the big deal? You use the PMT function and you can go to Google and get probably many thousands of references on this because you must learn it from when you're in primary school or something like that. This is not about the regular PMT function, and it's not about the PPMT function either. It's about when the interest rates are changing. And you might say, I know how to do that too. Shut up, get out of this video. I don't need you for sleeping pills today. Here is the issue is when the interest rates change, you have to kind of use a remaining balance, or you can use a remaining balance, and figure out an annuity function that's not exactly flat, but you can figure out the theoretical annuity function when the interest rates change. I'm sorry, an equation. And what I'm going to do is show you how to make a user-defined function to do this, so you don't have to go and add a bunch of lines to every single debt issue in your model. Now, here's what prompted me to do this. But first, if you want to do this, now I'm going to change that picture. I hate this picture with dollars. And then the worst thing I hate is when people use exclamation points when they shouldn't. My horrible sister does that. I can't stand it. And what you'll be able to do is click on the little button, and then you'll be able to take this just like the other functions, copy this and paste this into your Excel macros. So I didn't press Control C, I don't think. You press Control A, Control C, and then you go into your Excel function and you press alternate and F8. Whoops, Alt F8, and then you go to your functions or go to wherever. I'll go to macro 1, and then you go up to the top. I've already got an option-based one, so I really don't need two of them. And you just paste that. And then you'll have something I named Repayment. Not PMT, Repayment, that will work with changing interest rates. And if you want to use the old generic macros file, okay, I suppose I'll do this here, Control-Alt-C, or you can do it here. You click on this one that says Import Functions, and it kind of imports all the functions. I'm going to add one for this, or it can import individual functions, okay? And then, I hope I didn't mess things up. Okay, so now I'm going to show you step by step how to make this function, but first let me illustrate why I made it. I've been working on real models, and it's torture. I know this. And you have construction, financing, pre-ops, whatever. And this is in one of these sheets that has a zillion debt issues. I know that's the real world. And in these debt issues, they have an annuity payment. This annuity payment comes from, where does it come from? Up here, the principal payment. They have a ref date equals sum, and they put this, and they put this. And that is a function that takes the remaining balance, the remaining loan, and has an annuity calculation times the remaining balance. I think you can see this. A little better set up for this. Oh, God, it sucks. Where am I? I'm pressing here. A little better setup, maybe, is this. Oh, shoot. Is here. Elvis Solar. I'm going to give this a version of this model. I'm going to put a version of this model. So we start with the remaining. How many payments do we have remaining to make? And we get our interest rate. And then once we get our interest rate, we compute the payment. Where's my payment function? The total P&I based on the remaining periods, and the interest rate. And when the interest rate changes and you put all that repayment function in, well, that's pretty stupid. Let's sum this, and that better sum to be equal to 1. I hope it does. Watch it. No, there it goes. So I'm going to show you, look at all these nums and everything else. How horrible. Okay, so let's go and just do this. Let's demonstrate why it's a problem, and let's demonstrate how to fix it. So first, let's go here, and how many? I don't know. How many? I have 31. So let's press Alt-EIS, Tab 30, Enter. I hope you can do that fast. Alt-EIS, Tab 30, okay? Please. That's one of the good functions to use. And if you want to see those good functions to use, you press Control-Alt-E. And it's got the Alt-EIS right here. That's right up here. That's from generic macros being opened. And let's do this with different interest rates. So let's make a little selection. And I'm going to put index function here. Okay, and then we'll put equal index and select these three and pick one of the interest rates. Now the reason I'm doing that is because I want to demonstrate, well, if the interest rate's flat, we have no problem at all. So I'm just locking this in. Shift Control R. Now so Control Alt C, and I don't want a sum function in this one, but I want the A. Maybe I'll have a flag here in a minute, and if I do have a flag, I'll start the flag in column H, and I'm going to go ahead and mark links from other sheet, even though I'm going to not use it, and I'm not going to put one of those silly things at the top, and then I've got my color, okay? Okay, of course, well, I guess I did a bad thing. I put a very steep increasing interest rate and all of this. And now I'm going to try this. Let's make the tenor of the debt 20 years and the repayment 1,000. Okay, and let's go and make another index. And why don't this time I'm going to waste your time with this gimmick stuff. Developer, go into this one. Make a nice little thing, right click, go to format control, click on a different sheet, back to this sheet, select this one, press go to this sheet, go back to this sheet, click on the one, press OK, and finally, and then we'll pick one of those. So I'm going to use the simple payment function. And then after I use that, I'm going to use alternative functions. I have those stupid big models open, so it's going to take me a second. I'm going to stop this. Okay, so now let's get started. Let's do this simply. Let's do a simple payment. And let's, on this one, I could have made another box. So I'm going to start with I put a box in. I didn't waste your time on that one. I put a flat interest rate. Okay, let's start with a flat interest rate. Now, now let's make our payment. Let's pretend for now the construction period is period 0, and let's say that so let's put a repayment flag. And let's start with period 1 and go to period 20, the repayment period. Okay, so if you want to go and use this instead of the zillion other crappy old things about the repayment, you can say this thing has to be greater than or equal to 1, and the year has to be less than or equal to 20. Okay. And why don't I make a multiplied by this by 1, so I'm like the rest of the world. And then I put the payment in here. And for the payment, we put PMT. And it asks for the interest rate. Now, since the interest rate is always the same, I'm going to start with the first one. Okay. And then it asks for the number of periods. I'll put I'm going to do it. Let's do it better. Let's get the interest rate, the payment, the 20 periods, and put this. And let's, as we should do in almost all of these things, perhaps I'll put driver 1, driver 2, and I can't stand it when you don't do this, and I know when you put it in a different row, and I know people use this, whatever, this religious crap about what kind of format and style they should use, whatever. My style is to show you what you're doing in the formula. So we can even put driver 4, control R. Okay, we won't need that for anything else, but whatever. So I'm going to put equal PMT, and I'm going to put in the interest rate, the number of periods, and a minus on this, and I get this $sign. And then I can take this payment and multiply this payment, with F4, of course, and multiply this by the 1 or 0. Shift Control R, Shift Control C, perhaps. Okay? And then, now I could also get the repayment here. And if I put the repayment, it's PPMT. And for that you need the rate, the number of period, the period, and then the number of periods, and then almost the same things. Why don't I just get that? Oops. Shift Control left of the thing. And then this time I'm going to leave it out. I'm going to put PPMT, and we'll get the rate. And then once we get the rate, we find the period up here, period 0. That's not going to really work very well. And then you put the number of periods, and then you put the minus on the present value, of course, and then it gives you a num. You cannot multiply this by our true false, but what you can do is instead put a little if statement. Now, where I'm getting to this, if you want to fast forward the video, I'm going to show you how to make your own functions for these. Okay? I'm sorry, I'm kind of obsessed with all of this stuff. Now, I'm going to skip all this repayment stuff and click on the balance, and let's just put a balance. Let's put an opening balance, and then we'll put add the draw, and the draw we'll put as our 1,000, okay, from our inputs up here, and we'll put the repayment. Now, I should have. And then the closing balance. And I don't care if you call it something else. Brought forward. Good for you. How cool are you? And then you put an equal sign, make the opening balance equal the closing balance. And let's put the draw in and make that when this equal to 0. That's bad, I know. Okay. And then the repayment is the simple payment minus the interest, which I haven't put in there yet. And then the closing balance is, of course, the opening balance plus the repayment minus the payment. This is so basic. I'm sorry about this. And then we'll put the interest, and we'll take our opening balance and multiply it by our final interest rate, which is always the same. I better press Shift Control C, Shift Control R, and if you have these things, please do not do one at a time. Please don't do that. Okay, and then our closing balance is exactly equal to 0, and get used to using the lookup function for a test. So what we can do here is put a test and put our our tenor of our debt in for the debt test. And if we look up on this one and then click on the entire line and click on the entire closing balance, that better be equal to 0, or Well, that's pretty close to 0. And it just screwed up the column, and you can put an equal sign 0 and then put a round around it, okay? So now we're setting this up and we have a little test. Okay, oops, and I comma 2 or something, okay? That's good. Our test works. That's the basic kind of thing. Now, here's the problem. Let's put instead of the flat interest rate, let's put a really steep increasing interest rate. And then when we do that payment function, of course, it just used the one single interest rate, and then we really do get a false, and the repayment goes to a negative number, and I'm sorry, the debt balance goes to a negative number, and why was it keeping? Oh, that's because I subtracted the interest rate, and it all doesn't work. And if we were even fancier, and in our repayment, let's say, maybe we should use this PPMT, and when we use this PPMT, maybe what we could do is, instead of putting this interest rate right here, maybe this PPMT will really help us, and maybe we can just put this interest rate for the PPMT in, Shift Control R, okay, and then maybe down here when I put this repayment, let's now put a little function in here, and let's put an equal choose function, and that's where we say, well, if it was 1, let's take the simple payment minus the interest. If it's 2, let's take the PPMT function. If it's 3, I'm going to take this repayment that we haven't computed yet. And if it's 4, I'm going to take the repayment function and multiply that by the amount of the debt. And of course, I didn't put a dollar sign on this. That was pretty stupid. Okay, and now let's copy this and go downstairs. And instead of using the simple payment, let's use the PPMT function. And it's still false, and it still gives us a bunch of junk at the end. And basically what happened is we paid too much debt off by the end of the period. All right? That's that function. So now let's correct it. And my friend Hetty does this really well. I think she does this the best. But I suggested, maybe why don't you make a function for this? So what we could do is start with our debt tenor. And we can put a little if statement here. If this thing is equal to, if the period is equal to 1, then let's make it the tenor. Otherwise, let's make it the last period minus 1. So that's going to, and maybe we should multiply all this. We should multiply all this maybe by our little flag, so we'll just put 0. Okay, so we have 20, 19, 18, and it goes down to 1, and then it goes to 0. Okay, that's what we do. And then we can, I guess, let's make let's put our debt balance in here, and make another statement. If if this is again equal to, if this one is equal to 1, then let's put the tenor in. Otherwise, let's make it the prior remaining balance minus the repayment we've made in the last year. Okay, so we start with our 1,000. And then let's put our payment function in, and now we're going to use the interest rate the remaining life for the tenor and the remaining balance. So we just put equal, we can start here, equal PMT, and we put the interest rate in. So let's put our interest rate that's increasing, and let's put the number of periods as this of course is going to give us a num. Don't worry, of course, about that. Of course. No, maybe you're starting, you don't know that. Fine. And then I'm going to put a minus on this one. Now, when you do this, if you put a little if statement and go up to our flag, I'm going to leave that as false. And then it's going to give us our payment. Our first payment was exactly right. Or no, it wasn't, because this time I used 2.58%. So it was a little bit different. That's our total repayment. And then just like we do always, we can compute the interest on the opening balance of the debt, which I hope is this, times the repayment percent, times the interest rate. And then our repayment is just the total payment minus the interest. Okay, and then if it all works, we should have, one of these should have been the sum, whatever. Okay, and we'll put this in. Okay, and maybe oh my God, if you don't do this, the auditors will scream at you. Oh. And then we successfully repaid everything. That means everything's going to work. And then we can take this repayment percent and press F4 and get a percentage on that. Okay, that's so far so good. And when we do a sum, when we compute the sum, what a shit language. Then we get our 100%. Now what we're going to do now is do the same thing in a user-defined function. And for our user-defined function, we're going to need to read in the interest rate, basically. And I'm going to do it in 2 steps. I'm going to do it kind of in a basic way, and then we'll get a little more advanced. And then I'm going to give you the function. So you can stop the video now if you know how to do this, or if you want a repayment function. And the biggest advantage of this repayment function is you don't have to put all these lines in, and you don't have to waste your time on that. Okay, and to do the repayment function, what we'll do is I'm going to press alternate F8. Okay, and it gives me that. And I'm going to put repayment function. That will give me a new function. Okay, it will give me a subroutine. That's not what we want. We want function. I've never tried this, and let's put repayment. Varying rates. Okay. Now to do these things, whoops, I'll just press enter and let's go down here. Now, when I think about doing these, the thing we want to get at the end is we want our repayment. And we just mimic what Excel does. And the repayment was the principal, was the total payment minus the interest. Okay, and then we start going back upstairs. So far, nothing special. And this, what we're going to have to do is do a loop, and we're going to have to go around all the years. So we're going to have to go for I, which is the year. Let's put year, if we want, equals 1 to the 10. Now what that means is we're going to have to do 2 things. Next year, we need this in a loop. I'll indent this. It's not necessary. And then we need to read in the tenor. Okay. And then once we read in the tenor, let's keep going backwards. So then the total total payment is going to equal the, I hope you're turning the video off by now, unless you're a little technical, you don't want to do this. Workbooks, dot open, and then you no shit, worksheet function. That workbooks.open is really the best one of all. And then put PMT, and you can just get all the PMTs. And then it says what it needs is remember it needs the interest rate, and then it needs the remaining tenure. That's what we did. And then it needs minus the remaining balance. So we have to compute all of those things. The interest rate we're going to bring in. Now, when we bring in the interest rate, we got to recognize that this is going to be an array variable. So what I do is I put here as variant. Okay, and then because it's not going to be a simple, the output is going to be an array basically. I guess that's why you do it. And then you put you need an output, a place to put the output. So I'm going to put it in one row, and I'm going to say we could have 1,000 different 1,000 different columns. That would be a long-term debt. Maybe you're going to compute your debt day by day with a day-by-day interest rate or something like that. Okay, and now once you have that remaining balance, once you have the interest rate read in, then at the very end, I'm going to assign the output variable. This is a little tricky, and then we put 1 comma year. Okay, and what that does is it's going to put it in one row and go across the columns. It's always row, comma, column, and then you put output year, and then you put after that the repayment. Or you could put the repayment divided by the, no, this is we're gonna do this on a debt just of 1, so this is gonna give us a repayment percentage. Okay, now we're not quite finished. Now we have to go backwards, and let's first get the remaining balance. And what we're going to, for the remaining balance, that's actually going to be after the repayment this time. Remaining balance. Some people say you should always do something called option explicit and put everything in. Balance minus the repayment, and that will start. And for the initial repayment, for the initial remaining balance, let's make it equal to 1. Okay, and then after you do that, after you do that, I hate my accent. We have to compute the remaining tenor. And let's start with the tenure equal the 20 years, the way we did it. And then we put up here remaining equal. Now we have to be a little careful. If I did this here, it wouldn't start with 20. And for the very first one, we want to start with 20. Okay, so I'm going to put that down here. And then at the very end, I'm going to put the name of the function up here. Okay. And then here's what I'm going to do after this. Equal output. So we've made a function for the remaining payment on a payment of 1. And I am absolutely sure I made a lot of mistakes. And I'm going to go ahead and try this. It's going to give us a mistake. There's no way it's going to work at first. I'm very nervous. Why should I be? And what we do is we put remaining varying rate. And then if you press Shift F3, it tells you what to put the tenure and the interest rate. So I'm going to do that. The first thing, let me type a 1. Shift Control R. And then I'll put equal remaining repayment varying rate, not remaining. And then it asks for the interest rate. So let's put in the interest rate. No, it asks for the tenor first. Stupid thing. And then let's put the interest rate in. Okay. And press Shift Control, and then it didn't like the word year, so I'll put year 1 because the year was a typical mistake. Okay, and I'm sure I did some other things. Oof, stupid thing. And where was I? Okay, F2, and it didn't. It gave me a value. I'm going to stop the video for a minute. Okay, as usual, I made about 20 mistakes. I'm maybe just getting too old for this. I changed year to year 1. I go around to the tenor. I didn't put the interest rate in, and I didn't put the interest rate as an array variable, and we're reading in an array variable. And then I didn't, for the payment function, I had misspelled repaying tenor, and I can't remember if I put the repayment as the total payments minus the interest. Remaining balance is the last remaining balance minus the interest. And then we take the tenor and reduce it, and we go round and around. And we go through the tenor of the debt. And then we get this to work. And then we just, once we have that repayment function, we've done it once. That was pain. If you had to do this every time, there's no goddamn way you'd ever do this. And then, so right now, let's just put in our amount of our debt. And then once we put in the amount of the debt, put an equal sign, press F4, and multiply. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this much more flexible. I'm going to make this function so we don't have to start here. We can start here, and we can click on an entire line of data. That's what I always like to do, obviously. But now, if I change this and we put the remaining function with the payment, it works, and the remaining function with the remaining life, it didn't work, and that's because in the choose command, I didn't take the right number. I should have taken 31. Okay, and then it works. So that way, you can do what Hetty does, which is so good, put all these 4 lines in, but it's a lot easier, isn't it, just to put 1 line in? You could have even put 1 single line, just multiplied this by the debt, and get the whole thing done. And you'll find this file on the website, and if you go, ooh, this is where I look for these stupid pictures, and this is where I'm looking for laundromat. I'll put them right here, Excel and VBA, and I'll put it right here where I put UDF functions. Oh, stop that, UDF functions. So there'll be a remaining interest, annuity varying interest or something. Annuity varying interest. I don't know how I'm going to get that into 1 line. I'm going to figure that out. Maybe I'll kind of be able to skip a little line. So it's not there yet. It will be there. You'll find the file name there. And I'm also, I think I'm talking to myself a little bit here, but I'm also going to put it in debt repayment, and we'll put it in, this is kind of I said enough of the video, but I'm going to do one thing. I'm going to graph the repayment. And of course, when you make this graph, and then I'm going to put our little drop-down box in the graph, so Shift Control R, and then I'm going to put the this year in, but I'm only going to do it if it's the repayment. So I'm going to go up here, and if it's the repayment flag, then let's put this. Otherwise, let's put a comma NA and open and close the bracket. Shift Control R. And then let's make the graph. I didn't spell repayment, right? Maybe I should do that. Let's make the graph and press F11, maybe to make the graph alternate F1. And right click and go to our format axis and put it as a date axis. And then we get the varying rate. So we can change the tenor and all of that and change the graph. Okay. I can't talk and do that at the same time anymore. Let's right click, copy this, put it on top of the graph. Okay. It's kind of small, isn't it? Okay, and let's see what kind of a difference it made. So if I would have just used the level payment, I could have tried that, but it had a 0 later. If I would have used that PPMT, I would have got this, and you can see there's quite a difference between the PPMT function and our payment function. Okay, and we just got to get it a little more flexible, and that's what's going to be in the final function. And in fact, let's go down here. Let's make, how about I'll go to this one. I'll put 1, 2, 4. And above here, I'll put our, here, maybe let's put it right here. I'm going to make a data table and get our repayment here, Shift Control R, and let's put our different kinds of repayments up here. Simple payment. Okay. I skipped to 4. That doesn't matter. 3 and 4 were the same. Shift Control right arrow, Alt DT. Oops. Alt D table. And we'll change the column input number and put the repayment function applied. And I better press Shift F9 because I'm sure I don't have that in. And of course, this stupid data table, I can't make the x-axis quite right. I hate these data tables, of course. Let's copy that across, and let's just hide this one temporarily. Shift Alt right arrow, Shift Control right arrow twice, F11. Right click on this, format axis, do a date axis, and you can kind of see that the symbol payment would be way off. The PPMT function, it's not so bad, but if we really want to be precise, we got to put the repayment function in, and you can't just capture it right at the end is what I used to do. Okay, whatever, fine. Good. Okay, enough of that. This I better save this as a Sal macro enabled workbook. Okay, enough of that.